This is where we left in the previous video by getting the Google Client ID and secret and also set up our callback URL. In this video, we are going to configure our application to use the Google login. So let's get into the utils and then the passport configuration. Next step is that we need to tell Passport that, hey Passport, we also want to use what is called Google login. So we need to configure that. And like I said that by default, Passport uses what is called express session. But since we want to use JWT, and that is token-based authentication, unless we write some few lines of code. But don't worry, I'll make it pretty easy for you to understand and follow. So we are done with the local strategy. Next step is we're going to use what is called the Google OAuth. But before we get into that, unless we configure to use the JWT, and that is JSON Web Token. So first step is that we are going to create what is called options. So let me say JWT and then the options. So here, unless we install the package for Passport to use with the JSON Web Token, so let's shut down and then let's install the package as passport-jwt, and here we go. Let's go ahead and then require the package as const, and I will say JWT strategy, the passport-jwt. And here what we need is the strategy as that, and here I will say strategy for JWT. And we would need one for the extracting of JWT as extract JWT, and here we're going to use a method called extract, and then this one is for extract the JWT. Let me explain this one. Remember that in case we are sending the token to the user to be saved inside the local storage, it means that upon every request, unless we pass or send the token along with the request. So after the request is being sent to our server, we need to verify the token. And since we are using Passport, Passport is going to extract that token for us without us manually writing the code to get the token from the header. This is what the extract JWT means. And next step is that let's require the strategy for Google. So here as Google strategy. And let's remove this and let's require the passport-google-OAuth2. Make sure to install that package, which is this one. I think we have done that one already. Yeah, this one. We have already installed that. Alright, so let's go ahead and then continue our configuration. So here, let's begin with the options. So here I will say options is equal to an object. And inside here, we're going to specify what is called JWT from request, which is equal to extract the JWT, which is this one. And on that, we have a method called from extractors. Then as a function call, we're going to pass in one argument, and that is the array. And inside, we're going to pass in a callback function as that. And then after that, we're going to provide what is called secret or key. And this is the key that we use to sign the token upon registration. So if you get into the user registration, and that is the upon creating a token, we used what is called JWT secret, of which we have already set inside the environment variable. So here, I'm going to copy the process.env and then assign to this. So inside here, we have access to what is called request. And let's continue with the configuration. The purpose for this is that it is going to automatically take the token from the request header. And this one is a key that we use to sign the token. So here, let token is equal to null. And in case we have the request object, then we are going to access the rec.cookies. Remember, we have the cookies on the request object. And this is where we are going to take the token. So here I'm going to re-update the token to the rec.cookies. And then let's take the variable on the token. Remember, that is what we set upon creating the token, as you see over here. Let's see, as you can see, we used the token over here to set into the cookie. That is why I'm using the token over here. And last step is that we need to return the token as that. So we are done with the options. So now let's go ahead and then configure by using the passport. So here passport.use as a middleware, and then we're gonna have new. Let me have some space here, and then new JWT strategy, which is this one. And as a function call, we're gonna pass in the options, the one we just configured, and the second argument is going to be a callback function, and let's mark as an async. And inside the callback function, we have the JWT-payload, and then comma, we're gonna have a callback function called done. Then inside, let's bring in the try and catch. So here we are going to find the user by ID. Remember that this one represents the user that we generated the token with upon logging in, and this is where we are going to get the actual user, which means that we have decoded the user, and this one represents the user that we created the token with. So here I can even say that user payload or decoded. I can name it whatever I want. But let me make it more descriptive and say user decoded. And here we have the user ID. Remember that we used the ID here upon creating the token. Therefore, we can access that on this property. So here we are going to find the user. So as const user is equal to await the user dot find by ID, and then we're gonna find from the user decoded dot ID. Remember that this is the ID that we used. All right, so next step is that let's check in case we don't have a user. Let me bring it inside the try and catch here as that, and let's check if we have user. Then we are going to return and call done, and then pass in first argument as null and the second argument as the user. Else we will call done and then pass in null as the first argument and false as second argument. And then inside the catch, this is where we're going to return the actual error as done, and then pass in error and then false as second argument. So we are done with the JWT configuration. The last step is to implement the Google OAuth.